I'm going to talk about the university's role, the land-grant university's role in bringing new technology to market. And we think about new technology, a lot of times we think about insecticides, but it's not always that, right? Sometimes it's cultural practices, things you can do different on your farm. But today we're mostly going to talk about insecticides, and Wilson's going to come and then talk about some of that from the industry perspective too, okay? I'm going to start with this. What do we do and why we do it? And I've got some of my colleagues here from other land grants, and I say the land grant university and the university. I'm really talking about the University of Georgia. I'm really talking about the entomology department. I'm really talking about peanut entomology. I'm talking about what I do, and I think it applies to other people, but I don't want to put words in Dr. Graham's mouth or anybody else's. But so we're going to talk about what we do in my program to help shepherd technology to the farm so that y'all can use it. Anybody ever heard of Sun Tzu? I see a couple of hands. Sun Tzu, okay, Sun Tzu wrote a book. He was a general, a Chinese general, 600 years before Jesus. All right, long time ago, he wrote a book called The Art of War. All right, and in that book, he said, "It is said that if you know your enemies and know yourself, you will not be imperiled in 100 battles." All right, what does that have to do with anything to do with insects or pest management or a peanut growers conference in Panama City? All right, think about it. You're a farmer, you got a lot of enemies. We got insects, we got diseases, we've got weeds, right? You have to understand those enemies, all right? Know yourself. What does that mean? It means know the crop. How does it grow? We got Dr. Mumford out there, we got agronomists out there understanding how the crop grows, okay? Things we need to know. If you know those things, so what does that have to do with the university? What's our job, right? That's our job, know the crop. Sometimes know the crop means I can go to the library or get on the internet and read. Sometimes that information is not available. Sometimes we have to develop the information. That's where the research comes in. We develop, Libby, the information so that we can have the knowledge. Know the enemy, know the pests. I'm an entomologist. My job is to know the insects and understand them, their biology, how they work, where they are, so that we can manage them in your crop. Know the tools you have, right? When we say know yourself, what tools are available, whether they be insecticides or cultural or whatever it is. Know them. And as an extension specialist, my job is to take that knowledge and then hopefully provide it to you as a farmer so that you can make a profit on your farm at the end of the day. I'm going to tell a real quick story. I went to Brazil a couple years ago. And we went to visit a grower, and the grower was talking about whatever he was talking about. I don't know, because I don't speak Portuguese, okay? But they said, "What's one of your big problems?" And he says, "We got a problem with a viral disease." Okay, it's a virus. Do we have any problems with viruses in peanuts? Y'all heard of tomato spotted wilt virus. We've got a virus disease. He says, "This virus is spread by thrips. Tomato spotted wilt virus is spread by thrips." And I'm listening to the translator as they talk. And somebody said, "Well, what do you do about it?" He said, "I spray insecticide 7 times to try to kill thrips." There's not a farmer in this room, I would bet you, that doesn't know how to manage tomato spotted wilt virus in peanuts. We know, right, that if we plant after May the 10th, we reduce our risk. If we plant twin row peanuts, if we use a resistant cultivar, if we put thiamet in furrow, we can reduce our risk. We also know that spraying foliar insecticides does not reduce our risk of virus. That peanut farmer in Brazil didn't know that, and I didn't tell him. I couldn't tell him if I'd have wanted to because I don't speak Portuguese, all right? I didn't tell him that. But you know why he doesn't know that? Because he doesn't have a land grant system in Brazil doing the research to develop the knowledge to produce it and give it to the grower. All those things that I told you that you know about how to manage spotted wilt came from land grant research and extension, okay? Now, Mr. Don Kaler called me and he said, "Mark, I'd like you to speak at the growers conference this year." Glad to do it. He said, "Here's what the theme's going to be. This is what the title of the session's going to be." And I said, "Okay, what you want me to talk about?" I want you to talk about your work with rootworms and how you're looking for things as alternatives to chlorpyrifos, right? Y'all know Laura's banned chlorpyrifos insecticide. So I can do that, all right? So we're going to use rootworm as a case study today to talk about what the Land Grant University does to bring products, to bring technology to you on the farm. I got 2 goals. One, I'm an extension specialist, right? I want you to know your enemy. One of my goals today is that when you walk out of here, you're going to know more about rootworms than you did before you came in. Unless you happened to be at Apris last week and heard me talk about rootworms there, and then maybe you already know, okay? The next thing is I want the general big picture. I want you to maybe help understand. Some of you are farmers. Y'all been working with extension and land grants your whole career, you know. Some of you may not, but I want you to leave here understanding what we do at the university level to help bring technology to the market, all right? Know the enemy. Here it is, right? Southern corn rootworm. When I get a call about rootworms, they almost always say, "Mark, tell me about those southern corn rootworms." All right, southern corn rootworm is native to Georgia. It's always been there. All right. It's been well studied. You can go look it up. You can find information on the internet, lots of stuff about southern corn rootworms. It eats a lot of different kind of plants. That means the adults eat lots of different plants. It's not called the peanut rootworm for a reason, right? It eats different stuff. The immatures live below ground. They only live below ground. They never come out of the ground. They're always underground. That presents a special challenge for us, right? No matter what crop it is, if they won't come out of the ground, because we've got to try to kill something that's in the ground. When you're talking about peanuts, when you've got the pest down there feeding on the part of the plant you want to sell, that's another special challenge, right? It's difficult, okay? It requires moist soil to live, and that's important. This insect won't survive in dry soil conditions. So where is it a problem? In Georgia, historically, it's been a problem where we have heavy textured soils that hold water. And then once we got irrigation, right, those soils had all the time. They were always favorable for this insect to develop, right? We got Seth McAllister sitting. He lives right in the middle of the rootworm area in Georgia. They have red clay soil and irrigation. And those people in those areas have rootworm every year. They've had southern corn rootworm. They have to deal with it, all right? Here's a picture of what rootworms do. Do I have to tell you that that's bad? Does everybody acknowledge that that doesn't look good? Can somebody shake their head? Yes, that's not good, okay? We don't want that. That's what rootworms do. I don't say any more about that. All right, so what about the history? When we're talking about understanding the pest, understanding yourself, what do we do? Back in the old days in Terrell County, in Sumter County, they had products like DDT, diazinon, diphenate, carbon, all these old things, used to old timers we know about. Some people read about it in their classes or whatever, okay? What did these insecticides have in common? They were really good soil insecticides. Why? Because they had broad spectrum. They killed a lot of different things, Scott, right? They lasted a long time. They had long residual activity, Wilson, long residual activity. What's another good characteristic of a soil insecticide? A granular is good because we can put it on the plant, it'll fall down to the ground, and if it gets rain, it'll dissolve and we can kill stuff. What's the number one way to not get an insecticide registered with EPA? Be a granular, have broad spectrum, and last a really long time, all right? Everything that makes an insecticide a really good soil insecticide will kill it at EPA. Syngenta will not go to EPA with a product that has those characteristics. It won't get registered, right? Somewhere around 1980s, chlorpyrifos came out. Lorsban came out. We started using it all over the state of Georgia. We used it for a couple of reasons. One, hey, we've got soil insects. This stuff kills them. We'll use it. All right? Some of you probably remember also that chlorpyrifos, Lorsban, had white mold activity. In fact, it was better than some of the fungicides that were used at the time, so we were putting it out for white mold and soil insects. And then as we got better fungicides, it's like people started not using it. And what did they find out? Well, you know what? I didn't put any chlorpyrifos out this year, and I didn't get eaten up by soil insects. So we started to learn that we didn't need chlorpyrifos on every acre, and slowly over time, less and less of it was used in Georgia. But, okay, this area right here, where Seth McAllister is the county agent, they still used it every year. Why? Because they have those heavy textured soils, they have irrigation, and they were going to have rootworms every year. It's not a sporadic pest. Every year it's going to be there. How bad is it going to be from one year to the next? We don't know, but it's going to be there, so we used insecticides preventatively in those areas. Okay? Now, that use continued, and everybody seemed to be fairly happy. I moved back to Georgia in 2013. Nobody called me and said, hey, Mark, you need to work on rootworms. But something that we started to notice around 2015, I started noticing when I was out in the peanut fields, I'm seeing this beetle. This is called a banded cucumber beetle. It's still a rootworm, all right? The immature stage looks just like a southern corn rootworm, all right? But it's not supposed to be in Georgia. It's not native. It came in from the tropics. I don't know how it got here. It migrated north over time. It's as far north as North Carolina now. This insect is not supposed to survive freezing temperatures. Guess what? It does. All right, and we started noticing this thing, and not only that, we started getting some calls about, hey man, rootworm injury is starting to pick up some places that we never saw it before. But the folks who were in the historical rootworm area, the people who were using Lorsban every year, they weren't calling me. All right, they didn't seem to have a problem. They were still using that Lorsban. All right, but we're seeing it in other places, and what we found is that the immature seem to survive in areas that southern corn rootworm couldn't survive. It's surviving in lighter, sandier soils. Increased abundant in recent years. Today, right now in 2025, when you go in a peanut field and you look for rootworm adults, you're going to find banded cucumber beetles. We've gone to Plains, Georgia 3 times in the last month to collect beetles, okay? We go out, we collect beetles with nets. I've collected 900, give or take, banded cucumber beetles. In those collections, I've had less than 50 southern corn rootworm adults. Y'all hear what I said? 900 banded cucumber beetles, less than 50 southern corn rootworm. 20 years ago, there were no banded cucumber beetles. It was all southern corn rootworm. All right, things change. This is our pest. This is our enemy. Know our enemy. It's not well studied. We have to figure it out, right? I couldn't look it up in a book. We have to figure it out. Know the enemy. All right, if I mash the right button, let's talk about chlorpyrifos, man. I told you this insect was becoming more abundant, and maybe we were seeing it in other areas, but the growers who had chlorpyrifos, they weren't really complaining, all right? But there were whispers. We knew, even in 2013, chlorpyrifos is going to get banned eventually. Right? It's got all the characteristics that's going to get it banned. It's a granular, it's a broad spectrum. And then people started saying nasty stuff about Lorsban. Y'all remember that? Nasty stuff stuff you wouldn't want anybody to say about your mama, okay? Bad things about Lorsban. And so the Obama EPA said, you know what? We're going to ban chlorpyrifos. In 2015, they said that, all right? And then Trump's administration comes in and said, you know what? Nah, we're not going to do that. There's a process in place. There's re-registration that occurs every 15 years. Chlorpyrifos is up for re-registration. We're going to let the process play out like it's supposed to. That seems reasonable. We'll keep on using it, right? Times go on. Then the Ninth Circuit Court. They're out in California, all right? That tells you everything you need to know about the Ninth Circuit Court. They said, EPA, you got to either prove that chlorpyrifos is safe, either prove that it's safe or ban it now, right? So then in 2021, Biden gets to be president. The EPA said, you know what? We don't want this. It's going to be hard to prove that it's safe. That's hard. But you know what's easy? Banning chlorpyrifos. So they banned chlorpyrifos. And then I think it's the 8th Circuit Court in Louisiana said, you know what, EPA, you can't do that. You got to do your job. Do your job. Are there any people with the EPA here? I'm not trying to bust on y'all. Y'all do a great job. There's a lot of good work that comes out of the EPA. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. I'm not busting on the EPA. Not really. Okay? So the 8th Circuit Court, they said, it comes back, all right? It came back for a couple of years, right? For 2022 and 23, we didn't have it. 2024, we did. We had it up until June of this year, all right? Now we don't have it anymore. We don't have it anymore. It's gone. Gone forever. All right? What were we doing during that time? So this talk's supposed to be about what the university does. During that time, what were we doing? We're looking at alternative chemistry. What are other insecticides that are out there, maybe that are registered in peanuts, maybe that aren't, that might kill this insect? We started looking at banded cucumber beetle biology. Where is this insect coming from? What is it eating before it gets to the peanut field? Is there something we can do other than insecticides that will reduce the risk of having damage, right? We also met with EPA scientists. Dr. Stanley Culpepper brought down some EPA scientists down to Georgia, and we met with them and we showed them the problem that growers have. This is the pest problem we're talking about. This is not academic. This is real. These are people's lives, right? This is real damage that costs real money. All right, and those people were extremely receptive to that, right? They aren't the political appointees. These were the scientists. They're like, yeah, we get it, right? We get it, okay? And then we wrote letters, right? We were trying to talk to whoever we could talk to. Could we get this stuff? We need this. We don't use a lot of it, but the people who need it, need it, all right? So that's what we were doing during that time. But we're thinking, right? We're thinking about we're not going to have chlorpyrifos, and what are we going to do to manage this pest if we don't have it? Again, biology, risk factors, cultural practices. Other insecticides. Some of y'all may recognize that's the experiment station in Plains. Y'all can tell the dirt's red, right? That's heavy clay there, eat up with them, right? So I'm going to talk about some of our research results. And if you come to grower meetings in Georgia, you know I don't show graphs at grower meetings because graphs are easy to confuse. They're easy to get it wrong. Abney said that wasn't statistically significant, but dang, those bars look funny to me, right? I don't show data. I'm going to show you some data today, and the point is not for you to leave here and know that this worked better than that or whatever. The point is to show you that here's the work we did, and this is why we do it, right? Okay? But the bottom line is I get a lot of questions. I get questions about foliar sprays. Mark, can we just kill the adult? The adult's out there. If I kill mama and she can't lay any eggs, I don't have a problem. And you're right, except we can't do it. All right? All these bars on the graph are just showing you the one over here. We didn't spray. We sprayed up to 4 times with a product that kills the adults. If I put it on them, they will die, right? It has a pretty good long residual activity. Spraying it 4 times at the maximum labeled rate, and that's pod injury, right? So 40% pod injury, no reduction in damage. We cannot control this insect by spraying a foliar spray and killing the adults. Can't do it, all right? I get a lot of questions about that. All right, we looked at different use patterns early on from the very beginning when we started doing this work in 2015 or 2014, whenever it was. Let's put insecticide in the furrow. Let's see if we can run insecticide through an irrigation pivot, right? We can do foliar sprays, all these different things we can do. Let's look at all these different products, and at the end of the day, you see chlorpyrifos up at the top. That's what the growers were doing. You see why they did it, right? I'm showing you some data now. If you look at the bottom line, that's the untreated check. The chlorpyrifos line's at the top. They do it because 35% damage and 10% damage is real different. There's a lot of money there. That's why they do it. Chlorpyrifos worked. Okay, it was consistent. We did a lot of other things. It doesn't matter except to say that all those things we did didn't work. All right, we're looking at all those products that are available, all those things that are registered or legal, or maybe they're available, maybe they're not registered in peanuts yet. We're looking at those things. They don't work, which puts us in a real bind. In the meantime, we're looking at a lot of biology, and really there's very few things that were looking promising. Somewhere in there, I went to a national entomology meeting in, I don't know where it was, but there's 3,000 bug nerds, right? And one of my colleagues from Syngenta, she was in grad school with me. She came up, she saw me in the hall, she said, well, what do y'all do? What do y'all need for peanuts? Except she's a Yankee, so she probably said, what do you guys need in peanuts? And I said, we need something for soil insects. You know who I'm talking about, don't you, Will? Yeah. Especially rootworms. We really need something for rootworms. And I saw the look on her face when I said it. She said, you know what? We may have something for you to look at. And I was like, okay, cool. And some time went on. I think a year might have went by, maybe more. And then she comes to me with a protocol. And they say, here, look at this. We want to do a rootworm trial, okay? So we put in this rootworm trial. And here, I dig some peanuts. If you look, these pictures were at 105 days. So I pull some peanuts up, I pull all the pods off, I wash them off, I go look. And if you want to get me excited, I've been working on soil insects since 2004, on sweet potatoes and Irish potatoes and peanuts and other crops. You show me something that looks like this. The untreated check down here, y'all can see that. I don't have to really explain it to you. Look at all the damage. This is where we put this insecticide in furrow at plant. This is 105 days later. I was excited, Brad. Brad's looking at it. He can tell I'm excited. I was excited. What did I do? I took pictures, and I sent these very pictures. I went back and found the email. I emailed one of my friends that works for Syngenta now. He's the one that wrote the label. I sent him this email. This is the email I sent him. Thought you might like a visual. And I don't know what it is. All I know is it's called A22466. That's all they told me. And they gave me this much of it. So I knew it must be good, all right? I said, I don't know what this stuff is. I said, whatever it is, it ain't no joke. Get me a damn label. That's how I communicate with people, right? Short and sweet. Get me a label. That's the real email. And we've been trying to get one ever since, okay? Communication, relationships are important. What do you need? Who has what you need? Let's figure out how to make it work and get it to you. We did a lot of other things. So this is just I'm going to go through and just put everything up here because all the A's and B's don't really matter. Here's the untreated check. Over 50% of the pods in that test had external feeding damage from rootworm. Here's where we put that new product in the furrow when we planted. Look at that. 11% external feeding damage, almost no internal feeding damage in furrow at plant. We also looked at it as a pre-plant incorporated. We also looked at it through chemigation, different rates, different formulations. In fact, I don't know how much time, one of the formulations they sent me, I'm mixing it up, right? I'm mixing it in a clear bottle, and I noticed when I put it in there, it turned into little white flakes and settled to the bottom. And I'm like, dang, I don't think that's what that's supposed to do. And I called Syngenta, and they said, that's not what that's supposed to do. And so they said, bring it to us. They didn't want me to mail it. Bring it to us. So I brought it to them, and they tested it, and they had screwed up and they sent a bad formulation. So we work together with industry. They give us what we need, but we recognize they had a problem, and they were able to fix it because they had a formulation problem. Okay, so it's teamwork. Okay. Anyway, the product's working. We're trying to dial it in. Here's another picture. If this doesn't excite you, then raise your hand. I'll check your pulse when I get done. But this is treated in furrow at plant. Here you go, no treatment, same field, right side by side, treated, untreated, okay? Y'all can see the difference. We're just this is several years, this is 3 years worth of data showing that this product, this new product, is as good or better than chlorpyrifos, which we can't use anymore. and way better than doing nothing, okay? There's grade data. People ask me about grade. You know, if you got something like that bottom picture, you can imagine that that's going to affect grade. You're going to have some immature pods, not only just trash, right? But we had a significant increase in grade by managing this insect, okay? Trying to figure it out, working to know the tools so that when it comes out, when this stuff finally does get registered, we can tell you how to use it most effectively. So where are we today? I'm fixing to wrap this thing up. Where are we today? This product is called isocycloserum planazoline vertento, right? When it gets a registration, it's going to call it vertento. I hope I'm not stealing whatever it was you were going to talk about. But hopefully we'll get a registration the end of this year and we can use it next year, all right? Okay, we're going to want to put it in furrow eventually, but that first registration is not going to have it on there, right? The first registration is not going to have the in-furrow treatment on there because we didn't test that initially. The person who writes the labels at Syngenta happened to be a friend of mine, and when I called him and said, man, this stuff's working, he was about to submit the label to EPA, and he wrote peanuts in, right? That's why relationships are so important. He wrote planazoline, wrote the peanut label in there because of that data we got in those pictures that I sent him. Super excited about it, okay? So we're going to need to optimize that chemigation treatment. When I talk about you can put it through your pivot, most of the growers are going to have pivots. We've got to figure out how to make that work for y'all as growers so that you can maximize the efficiency of this product and ultimately reduce damage, okay? All right, wrap it up right here. So what's our role? What's it really come down to? Sun Tzu said, know your enemy, know yourself. You won't be imperiled in 100 battles. Know your crop, know your pest. You'll make a profit in 100 seasons maybe, right? Okay. Our goal, identify the needs. That's what we do. We identify the needs where we're talking to the grower, talking to industry. We communicate those needs I communicated the need to my friend at Syngenta and they say, hey, we got a product. We talk about this to EPA scientists, say, hey, we understand your problem. We're going to try to work with you on it. All right. Explore the options. Right? We're looking at other things. I've got graduate students looking at the biology of this insect. Can we manage it with cultural practices? All those things. We're unbiased, right? I don't care if Syngenta develops a product that works or BASF develops a product that works. I don't care. I care if they have a product, and I care if it works for growers, and I care if we can use it, right? Finally, we want to educate people so that at the end of the day, next year, when I'm talking to growers at grower meetings, it's going to be how can we most effectively use this product to manage rootworms in Georgia? And that's what gets me excited, right? I want you as farmers to make the most money you can possibly make growing peanuts.